Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. Gone in 1977, or maybe not. For decades, fans have been questioning, what if he never really left us? Strange sightings, FBI connections, and even speculations linking him to Pastor Bob Joyce, who some claim might actually be Elvis living a hidden life. Could Elvis have faked his own death and re-emerged as a new identity? Is it all wishful thinking, or is there something real here? Life beyond fame. Today, we know Elvis Presley as the king of rock and roll, but few remember that he started as just a shy kid from Tupelo, Mississippi. Born in 1935, Elvis Aaron Presley wasn't expected to become anyone important. His family was dirt poor, and he was the only surviving child of twin boys, which he always felt gave him a unique purpose in life. His early years were marked by singing in church, picking up scraps of blues, gospel, and country wherever he could. No one could have imagined he was on his way to becoming a global sensation whose impact on music and culture would last for generations. But Elvis's journey from Tupelo to the world stage was not smooth. After a talent contest win in high school, his confidence grew, and by 1954, at the young age of 19, he was recording with Sun Records. His voice was unlike anything people had heard, blending gospel soul with the rawness of blues. In a time when music had strict lines, black, white, gospel, blues, Elvis smashed through them all. Heartbreak Hotel, in 1956, shot him into celebrity overnight. Crowds went wild, women fainted, and teenagers screamed. Elvis had become more than a singer, he was an icon. But fame, as they say, can be a double-edged sword. The screams of adoring fans, the spotlight, the limelight, it all comes with a price. And in Elvis's case, part of that price was named Colonel Tom Parker. Parker was a former carnival worker who saw dollar signs the moment he set eyes on Elvis. He wasn't just his manager, he was like a puppet master, tugging at the strings. While Elvis was pouring his soul out on stage, Parker was pocketing up to 50% of everything Elvis made, a shocking cut for a manager. And Parker had big plans for Elvis, but not the kind that respected his artistry or personal dreams. He saw Elvis as a golden ticket, a never-ending money machine, and he kept pushing Elvis to perform, to keep recording, to keep working. Burnout? Not on Parker's watch. Now, think about living in a world where every move you make, every song you sing, and every outfit you wear is controlled, curated, and calculated, not by you, but by someone else. Elvis, who once had that raw spirit and hunger to make music, was suddenly caught in a web of schedules and obligations that exhausted him. Instead of following his passion for soulful music, he was shuffled through cheesy Hollywood musicals that made him a caricature of himself. Think Blue Hawaii and Viva Las Vegas, not exactly the gritty, heartfelt music he had dreamed of. Even Elvis's dad, Vernon, thought Parker was a bit of a villain in his son's life. But Parker held the reins too tightly, and Elvis was stuck. And it wasn't just the exhaustion, it was the isolation too. With Parker managing his life and his every decision, Elvis felt trapped, like he was living in a bubble. Despite the fans, the wealth, and the fame, he was lonely. His mother, Gladys, who had been his great support, passed away while he was serving in the army. Losing her broke him. Here he was, adored by millions, yet feeling emptier than ever. The only family he had left were the Memphis Mafia, his loyal companions who traveled with him. But even they couldn't fill the void that his mother's passing left in his heart. So, the king of rock and roll kept going, but something inside him started to break. He began relying on prescription drugs to get through each performance, each day. His lively dance moves that used to wow crowds now covered up how hard fame was hitting him. And as much as he wanted to step away, Parker's grip wouldn't let him. Elvis's life began to resemble a well-oiled machine he couldn't escape from. In the middle of this, rumors began spreading. People claimed Elvis wanted out, not just from his career but from the public eye altogether. After all, how long could someone live as an icon without losing a piece of themselves? Fans speculated, did Elvis even want to be Elvis anymore? Could he possibly be thinking of escaping the immense pressures, the exhaustion, the never-ending demands? Elvis federal agent, the witness protection theory. Alright, moving on with a twist you might not have seen coming, Elvis Presley, federal agent. Yep, you heard that right. The man known for spinning his hips and belting out Jailhouse Rock might have actually been spending his offstage hours as a secret undercover agent. It sounds like something from a Hollywood movie, doesn't it? But here's where things get really interesting, and just a little bit mysterious. See, Elvis wasn't just a rock and roll king, he was also pretty serious about cleaning up the country. In 1970, he marched right into the White House to meet President Richard Nixon. That's right, one of the most famous rock stars in the world, sitting down with the President of the United States. And Elvis didn't go there just for a photo op. He went to offer his help in the fight against drugs. Now, this might seem odd, considering Elvis's own struggles with prescription meds, but he saw it as a way to protect America's youth. He even asked Nixon for a badge from the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, and rumor has it that he took that badge seriously. Like, really seriously. Allegedly, he actually worked undercover to help federal agents crack down on organized crime. Think about that for a second, Elvis, out there with the FBI, trying to infiltrate dangerous criminal networks. Some say he was even involved in operations targeting radical groups like the Weathermen, a group known for its anti-government activities in the 60s and 70s. Now, who's to say whether Elvis was actually putting on disguises and sneaking into criminal hideouts? But stories like this are what make the mystery all the more intriguing. But here's where things take a darker turn. If Elvis was working with the federal, then he might have been making some powerful enemies. Organized crime doesn't exactly take kindly to folks trying to shut down their business. Could it be that his death in 1977 wasn't a tragic overdose but instead a way to protect him? What if Elvis didn't die but instead transformed into someone else entirely, someone like Pastor Bob Joyce? Fans have connected dots that suggest this may have been Elvis's exit strategy, a new life with a different name. It sounds wild, doesn't it? But some people believe that's exactly what happened. They claim Elvis's connection to law enforcement was deep enough that the government stepped in when things got too dangerous. They set him up in the witness protection program, giving him a quiet life away from the limelight, the fans, and, most importantly, any threats to his life. He'd be free to live out his days in peace, a world away from the intense spotlight he'd been under for so long. And if you're thinking this all sounds like conspiracy talk, well, you're not alone. It's easy to brush off stories like this as pure fantasy. But then you hear people claiming to have seen him after 1977 as if he were a ghost that refused to disappear. Elvis sightings kept popping up everywhere, gas stations, diners, and even a few national parks. Maybe it's just fans refusing to let go. Or maybe, just maybe, there's a grain of truth buried in all the mystery. So, what do you think? Could Elvis have swapped his white jumpsuit for a quiet, anonymous life somewhere far from the stage? Could he really have left it all behind to protect himself? And if he did, where is he now? Graceland Funeral Mystery. To support the previous controversies, we must discuss the day Elvis left us, or did he? When Elvis Presley passed away, on August 16, 1977, fans were left heartbroken. The king was gone. But not everyone bought it. In fact, some found his funeral downright suspicious, and honestly, it's easy to see why. Thousands of fans lined up at Graceland to say their final goodbyes, and rumors started to swirl. People claimed the body in the casket didn't look like Elvis. Instead, they said his skin looked waxy, almost like a mannequin. Some fans even whispered it might actually be a mannequin, a wax dummy made to fool the public. Wild, right? They said it looked too smooth, too perfect, like someone had just polished him up for display. And considering Elvis's health struggles at the end, it seemed a little too neat. His own cousin reportedly said, "That's not Elvis." And speaking of the casket, there was something strange there, too. Typically, a casket is heavy, but Elvis's was said to weigh over 900 pounds. That's not normal, folks. Why so heavy? Well, some fans believe there was an air conditioner hidden inside, supposedly to keep a wax figure from melting in the summer heat. It sounds like something out of a detective novel, doesn't it? Graceland was known to be sweltering hot that day, and the air conditioning reportedly wasn't working right. Coincidence? Maybe. but it's enough to make you wonder. Then there's the family reaction. Some close family members seemed unusually calm, almost in disbelief. A few of them had been pretty skeptical about the whole thing. His father, Vernon, even said later on, "There are a lot of things about Elvis's death that don't add up." Imagine hearing that from your own father. And fans who attended the funeral reported feeling the same way, like something wasn't quite right. It was as if they were all in on some secret that only a few truly knew about. Still not convinced? Well, how about the fact that just a few days after his death, people claimed to have seen him? Yes, Elvis sightings began popping up almost immediately at airports, diners, and even driving around in cars. People said he looked healthy and happy, as if he were finally free. And these sightings didn't stop after the funeral, they just kept coming. Elvis sightings. So, here's where things get even weirder. After Elvis left the building for good in 1977, people started seeing him everywhere. And we mean everywhere. It's like you're walking down the street, maybe grabbing a coffee, and suddenly, you see someone who looks exactly like Elvis Presley. This wasn't just one or two folks seeing things, either. Sightings kept happening, and not just in one place. Kalamazoo, Michigan, became ground zero for some of the most famous ones. Kalamazoo is a small city, but it became famous in Elvis lore. In the late 80s, people there swore they'd seen him, at a Burger King, no less. I know it sounds like something out of a TV movie, but witnesses described a man with thick sideburns, dark glasses, and that unmistakable Elvis vibe. Not exactly the way you'd picture the king if he were hiding, right? But maybe he just couldn't resist a Whopper. Sightings like this kept popping up. People claimed they saw him at airports, in parking lots, even at Graceland. And then there are the impersonators. Now, sure, Elvis impersonators are a dime a dozen, and most of them are clearly just having fun. But occasionally, one comes along who looks just a little too much like Elvis. Take one guy who showed up in Las Vegas a few years after Elvis's death. He looked eerily close to the real thing, so much so that fans wondered if it was Elvis himself. Could the king have slipped into the world of impersonators to keep the spotlight without risking exposure? It sounds wild, but it wouldn't be the first time a celebrity toyed with their own fame. And the media, of course, jumped on these sightings. Documentaries, TV specials, you name it, they all explored these mysterious sightings. Shows like Unsolved Mysteries ran stories with supposed proof that Elvis was alive, stoking the fire for fans who refused to believe he was gone. Every so often, a new report would pop up, a grainy photo, a video clip, or an interview with someone claiming they had proof Elvis was out there. Sure, skeptics could brush off some of these as overexcited fans seeing what they wanted to see. But the considerable number of sightings made it harder to ignore. And here's where things get strange. Sightings continued over the years, with some even suggesting they'd seen Elvis in the form of Pastor Bob Joyce. His resemblance, mannerisms, and even his voice have sparked rumors that he might be the king of rock and roll in disguise. Each time a new sighting or evidence is mentioned, fans are drawn back to this tantalizing possibility that Elvis didn't truly leave but found a way to live quietly, possibly as Pastor Bob Joyce. These sightings became part of pop culture, keeping the myth of Elvis alive. Every time a documentary brought up a new sighting or evidence, fans hoped for that one shred of proof they needed. Some may sound a bit far-fetched, but even after all these years, the idea that Elvis could still be out there is tempting to many. It's a mystery that never fully fades away, keeping fans guessing. But why? Why would Elvis go through all the trouble of hiding in plain sight? Was it just to stay close to the life he knew, or was he trying to tell us something? And most importantly, did Elvis fake his death? Did Elvis fake his death? And now, moving to the very suspenseful and most awaited part of this story, did Elvis Presley really fake his own death? Or is he now Pastor Bob Joyce? The more you dig, the more suspenseful details you see. Many people, including those close to him, believe something fishy is happening. Elvis's stepbrother, David Stanley, has a lot to say about this. He lived at Graceland for 17 years, traveling with the king until that fateful day, August 16, 1977. He shares some shocking insights in his new book, The Elvis Encyclopedia. During his last concert in Indianapolis, Elvis made a strange remark. He said in Spanish, "We will meet again." David believes Elvis knew it was his last performance. Just 2 days before he died, Elvis hugged David and said, "You'll never see me again." Those words stuck with him. It's almost as if Elvis was hinting at something fishy. He was struggling with fame, battling addiction, and feeling very unhappy. David seems to think he planned his exit. Then there's Gail Brewer Giorgio, who wrote a best-selling book titled Is Elvis Alive? She believes Elvis might still live a quiet life out there. When Elvis was brought into the hospital on August 16, 1977, a nurse looked at him and remarked, "That's not Elvis Presley." She requested not to be named due to fears of losing her job. There's even a letter from her confirming this. Code 5 was called, and she signed a government document swearing to keep everything that happened confidential. Gail's book also includes wild stories. Did you know Gloria Estefan once got a phone call from someone claiming to be Elvis? Now, that's a plot twist. Even though she was recovering from an accident and had doubts about the call, it raises the question, who could be behind these mysterious sightings and claims? A woman even claimed she saw Elvis in Port St. Lucie, Florida, at a baseball game. When she called the police, they confirmed it was him. But when Gail followed up, it turned out to be a look-alike. So, was it just a case of mistaken identity, or was there more to the story? These stories don't stop there. David Stanley, in a revealing moment, was in a hurry to leave Graceland the day Elvis died. Rumors say he was trying to smuggle someone out. Who was this mystery person? And why were they hiding? The situation gets even murkier when you consider Ginger Alden, Elvis's girlfriend at the time. According to reports, she started hinting that foul play might be involved. She even suggested the body was found earlier than reported. With so many conflicting stories, it's like a giant puzzle missing key pieces. Monte Wayne Nicholson, a Los Angeles Sheriff's Department detective, has been investigating this mystery for over 15 years. He's written books on the subject and has done numerous TV appearances. When asked whether Elvis is alive or dead, he admitted it's a tough call. He said there's compelling evidence on both sides. It's almost like he's trapped in conspiracy theories. He even mentioned the idea that something isn't right about the circumstances surrounding Elvis's death. Could it be a cover-up involving the government? Or perhaps something darker? The more you listen to the theories, the more you want to know the truth. So, did Elvis Presley fake his death? Could the king of rock and roll still be out there, somewhere, hidden from view? Or are these just stories we tell ourselves to keep his memory alive? That's for you to decide. So, after hearing all of this, what do you really think? Could Elvis have actually pulled off the ultimate disappearing act, re-emerging as Pastor Bob Joyce to live a peaceful life away from the spotlight? Or is it just our way of keeping his legend alive? Let's hear your thoughts down below. And if you're hooked on the mystery, hit that like button, subscribe, and share the video.